Hi, my name is David. I'm the owner of Shale Creek, and this is part 2 in a series of how we're installing high-density apples. And as you can tell from some of the snow around me, it's been mighty cold. We've had a cold snap in here tonight. It's expected to be about 17 degrees, and it's quite chilly. Nonetheless, work goes on. This is what we do during the winter months: is prepare for what we hope to come as a good harvest some years down the road. But what I'm wanting to show here is when you do any type of orchard project, you always need to revolve what you're doing around water. So here right now we have no water. We've been putting in the trellises, and that's what you see behind me. And 3 of the 6 trellises are up and looking good. In a few months here, we're going to be receiving bare rootstock, and that's just a very short time away, and it's going to be warming up very quickly. So I've already reserved a ditch witch to come in here, and I'll be digging in some channels here to put in some piping, and you'll see that and the work I'm going to be doing. What entails here, what we're choosing to do is we're going to be putting in drip tape, and I'll discuss that more as this video goes on. And there are different ways to do this. You can use emitters, drip tape, there's drip piping that comes along. You can use just little sprayers per tree, but you know, I'm not a large farm. I'm not putting in 20,000 trees at a time and 20 acres and all this. We're going to be doing probably, by the time all this is done, I'm hoping a few thousand trees, but at the moment we're looking at just a few hundred. So hopefully you enjoy this little adventure on this video, and you'll see what I'm up to and why. This is for kind of the small home orchardists that you probably are right along with me, and I wanted to show you that. It's not so hard. Everything you can get at your local box store, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, or whatever you may have along your area. So this is a great project. This is something very easy to me, doing PVC and drip tape, and I'll show you some of the particulars to that. So you can see down at the end of the row there's a little shack down there, and that little shack is a pump house, and within that is a water-driven pump that will actually suck up acid and inject it into our water lines, and we can also at the same time inject fertilizer. And that runs along a pipe here, and we hope to connect that to our apples. Now the reason we have to do this is not just the fertilizer, but our well water turns out to be a pH of 8.4. 8.4 is an alkaline water. You can't feed plants alkaline water. What ends up happening is that alkalinity ties up all of the dissolved metals, the nutrients like iron, turns to iron hydroxide, and calcium, and a few other things just don't become as soluble in that type of water. So what we have to do then is we inject an acid, and in this case I'm using nitric acid, a very dilute nitric acid, which gives me a little bit of nitrates to act as a fertilizer, into the line and drives the pH down to about a pH 6, which is great. Now I can adjust that anywhere I want to. So there is a pipe under here, and what I'm going to be doing when it warms up in the next few days is we're going to put a post out here. First we're going to dig all the trenches, put a post out here. We're going to use just a rainbird system. It's a 12 station controller, and that 12 station controller can give me a lot of maneuverability as far as installing other drip systems. So that's going to control just like it would control your grass in your home. There's a valve on there, electronic valve, and that opens up and then waters what I need to water. Very simple system. It's not complicated. The valves run anywhere from $20 to $40. The Rainbird controller, and literally this is going to be a Rainbird, so name brand, and there are others out there that are different names. Ran me about $130, and I think I picked that up on Amazon. So in just a couple weeks, we've gone from having snow on the ground to nearly t-shirt weather. And I've had the ditch witch come through here, and We dug our rows in here for piping. So each of these are going to be 3/4 inch pipe, and there are going to be 3 of these rows that are going to operate at the same time. Now these are 100-foot rows, and I plan on putting another 100 feet down this way someday, so I'm planning on all of that. My pump house can handle 11 gallons a minute, and that's based on the irrigation pump, which is pumping into it some acid to bring down that pH to around pH level 6. And at the same time, if I wanted to, I could add extra nutrients to it, like nitrates or boron or what have you. So the calculation goes like this. When you drip tape, and I'll show you that still to come, is basically very thin 6 mil plastic tubing. Comes flat in a roll, and you lay it out, and it has an emitter, basically a little slit with a very tightly controlled slit that allows so many gallons a minute or gallons per hour. You can buy those all differently. So I've bought a roll that is 1.35 gallons a minute per 100 feet. Well, so these are 100 feet. So if I have 3 of these, that puts me at 4.5 gallons per minute. Now, if I go ahead and extend that road down the hill, that doubles that. So what is that, about 9 gallons a minute, roughly? You know, just saying. 9 gallons a minute. So my pump can easily handle 9 gallons a minute. So if I put one of these controls, just one of the actual valve actuators, to control 3 rows at a time, then that's going to allow me 3 rows at 200 feet a row. And that's really good. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to be starting this today, and lighting is going to go up first, like I said, on a couple of these poles here, and I've installed an extra pole down there because that's going to be one of the newer lights. So I don't have everything installed. I've got 3 other trellises that'll be put in at a later time. Hey, money is the governor on this project, and this is the expensive part. So I'm actually planning for quite a bit of excess, because I plan on having as many as 12 rows, and they'll be 200 feet long. And that's the plans. So today's project, working on electrical, keeping the dogs occupied, keeping them away from the house, and just going to enjoy the time today. Beautiful day today. Now the electricity is all hooked up, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but at the top of each of these poles you'll see an LED light, below that a switch, and below that we've actually got some outlets. And that was just kind of a side bonus, because the real deal here is getting this hooked up. We need an irrigation controller. This happens to be a Rainbird, and we're all set up for that now, and it's got power. And now is kind of the crunch time, hooking up irrigation. So I've been running a little bit of line here. This is where all the solenoid valves are going to be, that are going to control a couple of different objectives here. And today, hopefully, I'm trying to finish those up. And it's been kind of a rough couple weeks. A lot to do and a lot more to be done. I got notification that the shipment is on its way, and that's the scary part. A lot of trees, quite a few trees that are coming, and they all need to still get dug in. And of course, when you dig them in, you need irrigation. And I really I'm pushing it for the irrigation. Solenoid valves, little controllers, irrigation controllers. You can find these anywhere locally. These are threaded, and that's what you're looking for. 3/4 inch, which is enough for my system. You know, there are other places that'll sell you 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, whatever you may need for your system. But the essence of it is this. This controller, this is a 12-stage controller, 12 different systems that it will look at. The typical Rainbird that you'll find, or Orbits, or whatever. Run about, for your home lawn is like 4 channels. Now, I need quite a bit more, so I've got the 12. And it doesn't mean I have to use them all, but I'm at least going to use 6. So something more than 4. So what all this controller does is it has a common ground that goes to all of them, and then gives a little 6 or 12 volt signal that goes to this. So basically you've got just like any power cord that you have plugged into the wall. One's going to be the ground and the other one's going to be hot. As soon as it's hot, this little valve here, the black part on the top, opens it up and lets the water through. Now, when the time, you tell it how much time you want, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. You know, you have to look at that because some of these controllers will go quite a bit longer, 2, 3, 4 hours. I believe this one goes to about 4 hours maximum. So you program it, you tell it what days, and it goes on and shoots the water through there. Now, I have to control this because I'm going to be using drip tape. Now, drip tape has to use a certain amount of PSI, a certain amount of pressure. You can't put too much. You can't put 60 PSI, which is a standard house pressure, through this. You have to scale it back. So I'm going to be installing on this supply line. It says supply, I know it's hard to read. Supply line, I'll be putting a pressure reducer on here. And then everything leaving there is going to go through the valve and then out to the rest of the orchard. And so it'll be a reduced pressure, but a flow rate that's at least 15 gallons a minute. I'm only going to be using at maximum 11 anyway. You may ask, what is a fertigation pump? And this is one here that doesn't require any electricity whatsoever. How this starts out is it needs water. It needs a water source. So if you're using a well, which I'm using, water comes in. You have a control valve. See how dirty this filter is? Normally they're pure white. So this is filtering out a lot of sediment that's coming out from our well. Goes through, I've got a secondary system here, which isn't really completely necessary, and I may end up removing this. And I have to apologize ahead of time because I will be changing this out to make something different. And then it can travels over directly to my pump. Okay, and you go, well, what is this pump? And you can see the name here. What it does is as the water goes through, there's a gearing system on there. And that gearing system says, okay, I can change my throw on the pump, make it shorter or longer, and it goes through a certain cycle. The up position pulls whatever's in this 55-gallon drum and injects it into the line. So then it basically is mixing it within the line by the time it goes over to your plants. Well, not quite done with the irrigation project, and my trees showed up, and it's time to get them dug in. Irrigation may have to be done by hand at least once just after planting. So this is the status this morning. It's a great overcast day today, as you can see here in East Tennessee, and which is a great day for planting because it's cool still. We're probably going to hit 60 maximum today, and trees are going in. Dug all the holes late yesterday. Was working on another project for our pears, or Asian pears. Those all got done and put in, and now it's time to be doing our apples. So it's going to be an amazing day today. These are dwarf rootstock, meaning they're only going to get about 10-12 feet tall. Dwarf Crimson Crisp and Ruby Red Honey Crisp. And there's 40 trees in here in this box. I want to pull them out so you can see about what they look like and how tall they are. When you go to plant these, you need to soak them for about half an hour to an hour. Okay, and let's see here. All right, so you're gonna lose about 4 inches off the ground on there, so that means these are at about 4.5 feet tall. Now this is heavily feathered. Feathered means that you have branches on here. This you pay a little bit of a premium for, because the feathering, at least for my type of production, maybe not yours, because I'm not doing standalone, I'm doing high density planting. I want feathers on mine. But these are quite healthy, quite select, pay a little bit of a premium. And you can see over here, this is our structures that we're going into. I'm planting into this. And our spacing on dwarfs, now dwarfs need support. You have to have support for the life of the tree, or else it'll just break on you. So if you're interested for your own home, a standalone, you want to look for something like the smallest semi-dwarf would be on M7 rootstock. Now these are going to be planted about 3 feet apart, and That's quite a different technique to pruning and everything. But I'm going in this 100-foot section here from end to end. We're putting in 32 trees. It's quite a number, and I've got 6 of these rows that will eventually be planting in this little area, about 8,000 pounds of apples a year when they're fully mature. All right, so here's an example of a dwarf rootstock. We've got dwarf apple rootstock. This is actually a really good root system that we've got on this. This is a Bud 9, and attached to this is Crimson Crisp. Now, on dwarf rootstocks, the danger you have with these is that although it's a small tree and controlled, this union, this graft union, is going to be your weak point on the tree. So if this starts to bend over and your trellis system, or however you're supporting this, for the life of the dwarf tree, that can snap very easily. So you have to be careful, and that's why we have trellis systems for dwarf rootstocks, whereas you wouldn't do this for semi-dwarf or standard trees. So as far as putting it in the ground, now you don't want to get anywhere near the ground with your graft. Couple reasons. One is that you can develop what's called collar rot, and this will actually rot out on you and just snap. Even easier than what it's going to do right now. And the tree dies, then you're done. And just when it starts producing really nicely, it's over. The second reason is if you do bury these in certain parts of the United States, seems to be the Pacific Northwest does a little more. If you bury it, then you start to develop roots off of this top stalk. Well, if you do that all of a sudden now you don't have your original rootstock anymore. The dwarfing characteristics control down here don't exist. This is going to turn into a standard tree. Well, on a high density system, you only want a 10 to 12 foot tree maximum anyway, and that's the reason you're buying a dwarf rootstock. So now all of a sudden, if this grass, I got a 25 foot tree spaced 3 feet apart, that would be a bad move. So the ground here, and you'll want to prep this. See, if I were to sink this all the way to the bottom, it's no longer level with the rest of the material, the rest of the soil. So I'm going to have to put in dirt, and because this is now all loose, I'm going to have to bring this up as high as I can. Now what they do is they recommend that you pull this up 10 inches above the soil level. I really can't do that. That's not what I've got on this rootstock. But I am going to bring it up a little higher than normal, because what's going to happen over the next 2 years, this soil is going to recompact. The roots are going to start to go, and it's going to start to sink. And I don't want this graft anywhere near that soil. So that's the objective here when you're planting really any tree, is you want to keep that in mind. If you do a lot of soil amendments, those soil amendments, especially if they have a lot of carbon in them, if you're adding peat moss, for example, things like that, then that's eventually going to go away. Worms will come in here and eat all that up, and you'll have a crater. It'll sink. Now your rootstock's too low. So we want to avoid that. So I'm going to be filling this in, backfilling it again with dirt. That's going to take me a little bit longer than I was expecting, and I'm going to be attaching that to the trellis above it. Well, just finished putting in all of our apples that we have for now, and that system went in really well. Love it. I like the clips, how they hold onto the trees. This is the Crimson Crisp. Love the feathering on these guys. It's really heavy feathering. This is going to get really full. I'll be out here in about a week or two, and it starts to warm up a bit, and start tying down branches and giving them more of a horizontal to negative angle on the dwarf here. And that's the way it's supposed to be for high density. It's very different for a standard standalone tree. When you've got a semi-dwarf or a standard, different. On those trees, I mean, you start to develop scaffolding, so this one big branch off to this side here, that's what you want. You just want to make sure that you've got tiers. Now, again, that's not what high density is about. High density is about the only permanent structure being the main trunk. And as this scaffolding starts to develop, if this is starting to compete with the height, then you remove the branch. And so initially, after 2 years, so in the third leaf, third year, you start cutting some of these things out that are heavily competing. And once that hits the top wire, way up here somewhere, hits that top wire, pretty much that dwarf rootstock is going to limit it growing any further. And so then basically you end up training for the purpose of making a columnar type of tree. So you've got few branches, and as the apples start to pull down on this, it really starts to bud. You don't get too much branching, and basically you singulate the branches. You don't want them to have more than, don't want to have a crook and have 2 branches coming off of one. So all of these, they're all singular branches. Some people call it a few different things. So that's the objective. We've got some other videos that I've watched, and you may go and look through some of those. I have developed a Facebook group, and it's basically just showing my own stuff here, and whatever else I can see that's out there that helps me understand, which hopefully should help you understand. So I've kind of singled out the best of the best of the best on that group, and I'll put that in the comments. So we're ready to go. Now I need to get the drip tape down. You can see I still got plumbing to do. The trees came pretty darn early. I needed to get them in the ground. Didn't want them sitting around in the garage in a box. So now that they're in the ground, the rest of the day is going to be dedicated towards finishing up this. I've got the drip tape and everything needed, and that's going to go down, and the project will be completed. It'll be set on a timer. Pipes will be cleared out of any dirt and debris that are there. It's warm enough now to where I've got my pump house all set up, and it won't freeze on me. So we're ready to go, man. This is it's an exciting time. Spring is on its way. So now wrapping this up, turn this on. I've got all the solenoid valves working perfectly. They're turning on their own. Controller's taking care of that to show you what drip tape is like, because that's what I've chosen here. You can see there are emitters here about every 4 inches. So down this row, it's wetting the whole line, all in between the trees and everything. And the drip tape, I'll read up on this a little more because I was wrong on what I said earlier. This is 1.32 gallons per minute per 100 feet. So how I've set this up then is we've got, I want to continue someday down this row another 100 feet. So this is 100 feet going this way. I put a T in line here. And of course, one side's capped off because we're only doing 100 feet this direction. Future will be 100 feet that direction. And this particular channel on that Rainbird is going to have 1, 2, and there's a pipe, number 3 right there, as those are all be watered at the same time. So that's 300 feet on this side, and then another 300 feet going down the hill. So it's a total of 600 feet. So that's 6 times 1.3, and that's enough for my fertigation pump to be able to handle all of that. And I've already tested it. Works great for that volume. So this is our setup. We're done, and we're ready to go. Trees are planted as far as the number that I purchased. And next year, hope to fill in all the blanks here that I've got. But these trees are looking really good. They're getting watered. I've got it set up for Monday and Thursday. It's going to be watered twice a day, so it's going to twice a day on Monday and Thursday for about 90 minutes, which is going to give it more than the 10 gallons it needs. Now I'll cut that back later, but right now we've got kind of a sparser root system that would normally be there. So if you look here, this is 3 feet between these 2 trees. And the roots are only within like 8 inches of that one tree and 8 inches of here. But sooner or later, this is going to be a solid root system. It's going to be like one big family going all the way down the road. And we need to take care to make sure that they're constantly watered. So high density system needs an irrigation system. It's not really an option where you can say, well, yeah, here I'll just depend on the weather. No. You're going to need at least 10 gallons per tree per week, or 1 inch of rain. So you've got to be mindful of those facts when you're irrigating. Well, this wraps up this segment. I hope this has meant something to you in the way of imparting some knowledge, some skill sets, why we're doing things the way we are, and when we do screw up and when things do happen and go wrong, that'll be part of the next segment, and we'll include that. Again, David from Shale Creek. Hope you've enjoyed this. You take care.